Hey there, friends. Katie Bryant here, and welcome to another chat on how our body works. So, today we're going to talk about our digestive system and all the things that can go along with function and structure and just different things that can affect a good, healthy digestive system or one that tends to have a little more complications to it. So, the deal here is this. I love to talk about wellness and how the body was created to be well. So in my videos, we don't talk about anything that is a medical condition or diagnosis or a medicine or anything like that, because all of my certifications focus on being well. And we know that when a body is functioning properly, then you're going to be well. And so we're just going to look at a bunch of different things that take a part in that. So a little bit about me is I've been a mom for 13 years, and our oldest child was born with lots of complications, and that is what took me on a path of health and wellness when, we had worked with doctors and hospitals and all the specialties for years, and we still were not seeing positive results. In fact, when she was 7, they gave her 6 weeks to live because all of her systems were shutting down. And so it was at that point where that really pushed me hard to look at the body in a different way. God kind of whispered in my ear, like, listen, girl, I created this body to be well, and there's a whole different way out there to look at this. And so that's what I started doing. And I worked with a bunch of mentors and different doctors who took a whole body approach to it and started working on different certifications so that I could help educate people to be empowered to make their own choices. That is the biggest thing that I want you to know, is that nobody knows your body like you do. And God can tell you exactly what your body needs and how to do it. And He can put those people in your path so that you can work as a team. So I think it's really important for you to find a practitioner who you can get to know and work with, and so they can know the things that you're comfortable with and the things that you're not. And just find somebody who focuses on whole body health, because every single part of us is connected to the rest of us. You can't separate it out. And so like today, when we talk about our GI function, it's directly connected to our brain function. So part of my girlie's issues, a big part of her issues was that her colon didn't want to work. And we actually had a tube in place where we would manually flush her bowels every day because they didn't work. And so I have spent literally years with GI specialties and living on the GI floor, impatient with our girl. And so I could probably talk your ear off for hours about poop. But I'm not going to. We're going to keep it short and simple and to the point. So our digestive system has a lot of parts to it. It has, like the small intestine, the large intestine. Digestive stuff actually happens in your mouth, right? When you start to chew your food, there's just certain enzymes that start actually digesting your food while it's still in your mouth, and that's why it's so important to be a good chewer. My kids aren't typically long chewers, like 2 chews and swallow. It's like, no, dude, you got to chew that stuff up. And so then it goes down the esophagus, into the stomach, and then to your intestines, and it works through all those different things. But then there's also other organs and glands that come into participation, things like the pancreas and the liver, the appendix. I've talked with so many different doctors who feel like there's not even a use for the appendix, and there's a very important use for the appendix. And so, just understanding basic function is so important. And so one of my favorite books for that is Ultimate Balance by Leanne Deirdre. This is a very easy book to use because I don't know about you, but I love pictures. I'm a very visual learner. And so this book really opens it up. It tells you about healthy function. It tells you what time of day that this organ regenerates. So every 24 hours, every organ in our body has a 2-hour window where it reboots. And if we are not giving the body what it needs to reboot that specific organ during that specific time, like for instance, this is the small intestine. So from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. every day, the small intestine reboots itself. And so sometimes if your body's rebooting a system and it's lacking in nutrients or minerals, or maybe it's stressed, you may feel not a great person at that point. You know, some people will just feel tired, some will feel sluggish, some will actually fall asleep. I mean, when the body is trying to do its thing, it sends us signals all the time. Is it doing good? Is it needing more? And so I love this book because she just takes into consideration all different things, supplements and oils and food and things to watch for. And so I just love that book. And so I'm not going to spend tons of time educating on each system or each part of the digestive system, but it's important to know where they are in your body. It's important to know what their function is, because then you can kind of figure out, okay, what is this happening over here, and what organ is there, and why am I feeling that way? You kind of have to become your own body detective. And so, you know, you start learning about these things, and the appendix, you guys, the appendix, let's talk about the appendix a minute, because in so many of my anatomy books, the appendix has no known function, and it's just befuddling to me. When you get into the holistic realm, they're like, oh no, your appendix is very, very important. What your appendix does is it creates the probiotics for your intestines. Okay, and if you've watched any of my other videos, like on pH in the body, you will know that in the colon, obviously as food is working its way through, right, your body pH is really, really important to maintaining health. And so that's the job of the appendix. When that stuff is coming down through the colon, it gives this little shot of probiotics into your gut. And so what happens is when the gut gets overextended, or it gets really weighed down with a lot of stuff, because let's be honest, the average person carries around 5 to 10 pounds of extra waste in their body. So it passes through, some of it starts to get cemented on your walls of your colon, and then it just doesn't let go, y'all. Oh, those conversations on the GI floor were really fun. So it's just really important to keep really good movement happening. And so when that starts to slow down, the appendix gets really overwhelmed, and that's when we can start to see the appendix not be happy. And so that's why I'm a really big advocate for probiotics every single day, because we want to boost that colon function. We also want to help the appendix out. And so its main job is to produce probiotics for your gut. And so if somebody doesn't have their appendix anymore, it's even more important for them to use probiotics, eat fermented foods, you know, do the greens, and just really be aware of what they're putting in their body. I mean, we all should be aware of that, especially if the appendix is gone, or even things like the gallbladder or whatever. We can't just remove something from the body, because we don't have extra parts, y'all. We can't just remove something from the body and not replace function somehow. So, like we know the gallbladder, it plays a really big role in digesting food when it leaves the stomach. And so we need to make sure that we have those digestive enzymes happening, whether it's through certain foods or through supplementation, that we help support those areas of function, because, you know, it's kind of like, well, if you got a flat tire in your car, you know, and you keep driving on it, number one, you're not just going to have an issue with a flat tire. It's going to get to be a bigger problem for the rest of your car. But you wouldn't just have a problem with your tire, take it off, and not replace it with something. I mean, that's fairly basic. So the body is the same way. We don't want to take away something without replacing the function that it was doing, because then it's just going to be a cascading effect of, okay, what else is going to domino down, because the body's no longer getting that support from that organ. So there's just a lot of places we could go with this, and I don't want to bore you all day long. So let's talk a little bit about how what we put into our body plays a role into the mental capacity. So, for instance, I didn't really understand this until about 10 years ago. I just knew how I felt. But once I became a mom and I really tuned into my kids, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do, is tune into what they're doing. I really saw how this works. So whatever we put into our mouth, okay, it goes down into our whole GI system. And, you've heard of the gut-brain axis and how the brain will literally do what the gut is doing. And my kids, and most kids are like this, the minute somebody gives them sugar, I don't know what happened to my child, but they are then bouncing off the walls. They're crazy. Maybe they're even mean. Like, it is like a night and day difference than, when they didn't have sugar. And so my little guy, we were really, really careful about what he got. He was fairly young when we started on this wellness journey. And so he didn't experience a lot of what the girls experienced. And so he was about 4 years old. He had not had pop. That was one thing that I was just adamant about. You look up the pH of soda pop, you guys, it is like drinking battery acid. That's just a no-no in our house. And I don't ever bend on that rule, ever. Like my kids know, you don't touch the pop. And we were traveling one time, and we were with a group of people, and my little guy comes up to me. He's like 4, and he's like, "Mommy, help me, something's wrong." And he could barely talk, and he's just shaking uncontrollably, and I'm just like, what is going on with my kid? And, I'm trying to go, okay, who was he with? Where was he at? What was he doing? Retracing the steps. And I get over to where he was sitting, and somebody had ordered him a Pepsi. And he had drank some of that Pepsi, not even very much. He drank some of that Pepsi and literally looked like he was having some form of spasm, freaking out issue. And so what I did is I pumped a bunch of water into him and gave him, I think I had my salad sitting there, so I gave him a couple bites of salad, and instantly he started to calm down. And that was one of the very first experiences where I was like, whoa, his system had never been exposed to that much sugar at one time. And that's how he reacted to it. And it scared the living daylights out of him. And so, what we're putting in directly affects our brain. It can make you foggy. It can make you upset. It can make you agitated. It can make you just feel completely like an out-of-body experience. You can't even connect sometimes. So the more sugar, the more processed foods that are going into our gut, it's a really big deal because it is affecting our concentration levels. It's affecting our sleep. It's affecting, a lot of times when I'm working with someone or, we're just adjusting things in our house. If one of us isn't sleeping well, two of the first things I do is to make sure we are not having any processed sugars and that we have enough probiotics in the gut, because probiotics help to boost that function in the body and create serotonin, and serotonin directly feeds to the brain, and that calms the brain. Okay, and so we have a choice every day to build that up or to tear it down. And so now if my kids are somewhere and they get a lot of sugar and they have, that drowsy feeling, or you can tell they're just like zoning out, or they're bouncing off the walls or upset or whatever, I will just slip a tiny bit of coconut oil into their mouth, and usually within 5 minutes they're fine. Because that healthy fat goes in, counteracts that sugar, and immediately calms the brain. And so that is just something that I'm a huge fan of. If you don't have this book, the battle for your health is over pH, I highly recommend it. This kind of tells you some of those things as well. What certain foods, how they affect the body, and how to know, like, what is your body doing? What is it experiencing? Which is really, really important. So, things that can definitely lower your function, those processed foods, those sugars, those fast foods, food that is not real will directly affect your gut. Harsh toxic chemicals, pharmaceuticals, dehydration, making sure you have good, clean water at your disposal all the time is super important. Negative emotions, that will tank your function. It will actually cause your GI tract to just halt. It'll be like, nope, you're so stressed, we don't know what to do, so we're not going to move. So then we have, stress levels, exhaustion, poor sleep, everything just plays a part into how your function goes. Constant worry, especially if you tend to be a worrywart, you know how it is. You get bad news, and either, I know some people who tend to like throw up if they get bad news, or they run to the bathroom because they can't hold it any longer. It directly affects your gut function. Also, what I've learned with my kiddo is the older she gets, we've come a long way in her gut function. We've been able to remove that tube with the doctor's permission, that we no longer need to flush her bowels manually every day. And if she tends, because she's a teenager now, and her attitudes are definitely shifting some, but if she's really wanting control over a situation, I'm noticing that her bowels will slow down. And so when you need to control something and you just feel completely out of control, a lot of times the gut will just like stop. Like you'll notice, oh, it's been a few days since I've gone to the bathroom. And so that's another sign that there's probably stress involved. So things that can raise function, good whole food, greens, foods that increase enzyme activity, so lemons, pineapples, cucumbers, things like that. Those are really, really good. Probiotics, fermented foods, organic broth. So some people like to do an organic veggie broth. Some people like to do a bone broth, whatever is your choice. It's really, really good. Pink salt flushes, you guys. I encourage you to look into those, read up on them. It can be very, very beneficial for keeping the gut healthy and keeping things moving. If you haven't looked into it, I also recommend the Master Cleanse book by Tom Lushin. The Master Cleanse actually originates with Stanley Burroughs, but Tom Lushin took it, studied with Stanley Burroughs, and has a fabulous book on Amazon that you can read about the Master Cleanse, how it helps with gut health and gut function. I have done it a couple times and I highly recommend it. I've never been able to do any sort of cleanse, and the Master Cleanse is a winner for me. So definitely look into that if you want to, find some easy ways to boost your gut health. I'm a big fan of ionic foot detoxes. I do those weekly, and it really helps relieve the toxic load in the body. Obviously, lowering those stress levels, y'all. Stress is one of the number one killers because when we're stressed, it has a direct effect on every function in the body. Having a healthy emotional state, using your essential oils, your good supplements, getting good quality sleep, prayer, meditation, rest and relaxation. Like, these are things we shouldn't take for granted. These are things that we should incorporate into our daily life. And if we don't have enough time in our day to incorporate these, then something's really out of balance. And at some point, the body's going to say, guess what? You didn't stop and reboot, so I'm going to make you stop. And usually it'll land you in bed, right? With some sort of something, or you'll have a meltdown where everybody's like, whoa, she's lost her cookies. And so you really need to focus on reducing those stress levels. And so let's talk a little bit about the emotions that typically go with gut function. Okay, so this is going to spread a lot of different areas. one book I love to use is Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die by Carol Trueman. And back here, she has some resources where she breaks down different parts of the body and different functions and diagnosis. So for instance, this one, has constipation listed and some of the emotions that can be happening in your body, in your life when you're experiencing constipation. Okay, things like constantly worrying, resisting the flow of life, anxiety, and blocking what you want to say. And so I've kind of taken some of the top ones out of all of the organs of the GI tract, but I really encourage you to get this book and have this resource for yourself. Another one is Heal Your Body by Louise Hay. She, again, breaks it down by organs, by different things you may be experiencing in the body. And then in the back, there's a really great spine chart, which tells you a lot about how your body functions as a whole. And then last but not least is the essential releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. And these don't come spiral bound. Actually, I get those done because I use these books every single day. But this will tell you about certain emotions and where emotions are actually stored in the body. And then in the back, the cool thing about this is it also tells you what oils to use for that. And then in the back, there's all these body charts to tell you where the alarm points are. And so it's really key that you have some manuals on knowing how your body functions. And those are some of my top ones that I use every single day. It's so important to have those. So some of the emotions that typically happen where we feel affected is holding back, loss of enthusiasm, self-doubt, if we're feeling angry and not dealing with it and just bottling things up, fear, just fear of anything, actually, a lot of worry, okay, so that can directly affect the gut. Overwhelmed with stress. Stress affects it. Stress affects your sleep because it's affecting your gut, which then is affecting your brain. And so, you get these books, you start looking them up, connecting the dots, very, very powerful. I also, as being a aroma freedom practitioner, work every single week with people where we pinpoint those stressors and we just gently let the body release it. And literally within a 60-minute session, somebody can feel a night and day difference. And I love it because you can do it in your safe place. So we do it virtually and we just walk through it. And it's so powerful because as you release those stressors and maybe, it's just a mindset that you didn't even know was there. When you start working through those, it's truly life-changing for your body. And that's one of my biggest loves is doing aroma freedom sessions with people because the freedom and the release that happens, it's not uncommon where if somebody's working on the gut that they will see an instant shift in their gut health, whether they're able to finally go to the bathroom or their function just levels out because that stress is managed. And so that's really, really powerful. Some of my top essential oils for the gut. Now, these are all Young Living oils. I only use Young Living because I feel like they are the best. I have used them for almost 6 years, and the results that I've seen with them is like nothing else. I know my farmer. I know where they come from. I've been to the farms. I've worked on the farms. And you guys, what we get in our bottles is what we get. Like it's really what they say it is. It's just our essential oils in there. So some of my top singles would be things like lemon, orange, grapefruit, any of those citrusy ones, cypress, oregano, thyme, wintergreen, any of the herby oils. So think, marjoram and things like that. Peppermint, spearmint. Also cinnamon is really good. Lemongrass. They all have different functions. And so again, get your essential oils desk reference out. Look them up. see what you read about them, what you're learning, what you feel like fits with your lifestyle, how you want to use them. There is no wrong way to do this except not to do anything. And so you are your advocate for your health. And so you'll figure out how to do these. Some of my favorite blends: Thieves, MU Power, Aroma Ease is actually a really good tummy oil, especially for kiddos. Peace and Calming, again, go back to that worry thread. Peace and Calming, stress away, anything that starts to really just get your body to calm. Things like Surrender, Release, Harmony. Aroma Seas is one of my favorites. It has a really yummy smell to me. Valor, okay, Valor. Everyone needs Valor, y'all. If you don't have Valor, you are missing out. Trust me on this one. And so those are some of my top oils. Some of my top supplements for them. Everybody should be on Ningxia Red. Like, legit, that is like my superpower juice. Ningxia Red and Ningxia Nitro. Amazing for gut and brain function, which we always want to support, right? Rahemagen and KMB, for those of you who know me know, like, I preach Rahemagen and KMB. Very, very basic structure things that need to happen in the body. And there's herbs and essential oils and different things in those that I would encourage you to look up those products, read about them, understand how those things work in your body to know if it's going to be a good fit for you. Then there is things like Inner Defense and Longevity. Those are supplements with more of those herby oils in them. And so herby oils are herby. I keep saying herby oils. So that's like oregano, thyme, marjoram, basil, things like that are really beneficial for making sure that bad guys don't overrun our guts. Okay, so the more processed food we eat, the more sugars we eat, the easier it is for the bad gut flora to run crazy. And when that happens, they love to live on the cement that's left there. And then they start eating holes through the intestines, which then things start leaking out into your body. And it's just so gross when you start to learn how that all goes. It's like, oh, I just don't even need to know, like, all those things. Like, I remember seeing pictures one time that the GI doctor brought in, and I was like, oh, I'm officially grossed out. Like, I can handle a lot of things, but that was a lot. And so it's important that we're boosting good gut flora with probiotics and fermented food and real foods, so that those bad guys don't have a chance to go crazy in there. And so oregano, thyme, things like that are really good at keeping those guys in check. I always say go slow. I'm a very, very conservative person. When anybody, like for me, a long time ago when I would try to go on a diet, I ate a very, very high processed food diet. And so if I would eat a salad, I'd feel really sick and be like, see, it's not good for me. I should keep drinking my pop and eating my French fries. So you want to incorporate it slowly. Okay. Don't try to build Rome in one day. Start slow. You may add in some oils or some different foods. You may make conscious decisions not to eat something specifically that you think maybe is not good for you. And just kind of start coming up with a wellness plan that is yours. That's why working with that practitioner who knows you is really important. And you can say, listen, this is my goal. What are some areas where we can get started? And when diagnosis arrives in the body, it's because the systems are not getting the support they need. And so that's why having your library of books is so important, to understand what affects a body system to lower its function. And, we can have a lot of conversations, and a lot of times the person will just go, oh, I know what it is. Okay. And they do. They know what it is because you just know your body. And like when somebody says a certain word to you, or you see a certain food or whatever, your body responds. And so it's all about tuning in to, if I see a donut, y'all, I have no willpower against donuts. I don't. But instantly, my body does something different when I see a donut. I crave my smoothie differently than I crave that donut. And so it's just really learning how your body is responding and how to read that. So you're just going to be your own body detective. And as always, if you have questions, I'm kind of like the resource guru. I love to point people to places to learn so that they can make informed decisions for themselves. So I hope that this is really helpful for you and not overwhelming. And I look forward to connecting with you. And let me know if you have questions. Feel free to share this link, and we'll chat soon.